A lot of distance was covered on foot by Kenny Veach during his search for M Cave. However, only a small portion was recorded. What was Kenny Veach hiding from us in order to not include the majority of his hike? Hi there, welcome to the Kenny Veach M Cave mystery. Today focusing in on his original hike video because it's not been talked about much by anyone out there. Whilst he started at the mine shaft, what about all that distance beforehand? And when he came out of Picture Canyon, what about all that distance on the way back? When you compare it to other hikers that have gone out there since, taking their time and consideration, planning and prepping, and also just the fact that it is a desolate, difficult area to hike in, and it takes quite some hours to do. It can take weeks, days, months to prepare for it, physically, mentally, and the equipment. So if you're going to go out to a place like that, surely you would try and make the most of the journey. The cost of travel and the equipment and anything else in between, surely you would do the best you can to record as much as possible, because you might not be back out there the next day or the day after because it's a demanding place and down to daily responsibilities. With Kenny Veach, he had more of a point to prove, because whilst he went out there previously unrecorded, then he talked about it online in his discovery, an M-shaped looking cave, felt vibrations the closer he got to it. It scared him. He hightailed out of there, and people encouraged him to go back, and that's what Kenny did, and recorded it and was armed. You would think you would do as much as possible to document as much so you don't miss a single thing. You're going there with a point to prove, just like hikers since, with a point to prove of, I'm trying to look for Kenny Veach, I'm trying to look for the M Cave, looking for all the different signs and possibilities, locations, and even giving coordinates or giving a start point and an end point, documenting your journey all the way through. Yet Kenny Veach didn't do that, yet he had quite a big responsibility and pressure building. So it's something that I've picked up on over time, because whilst other hikers have been out there since and they have shown you the full hike, the route, the loop, the distance and time, Kenny never did that. It was as if he was either hiding stuff from us or teasing part of the hike. See, the first location where he started recording was also the location and final spot where his scent ended in November of the 10th, 2014, where his phone was found. So was Kenny Veach purposely planning it out from months beforehand, that the mine shaft is the start point and soon to be the end point? Did he have it all wrapped in his mind as to how he was going to construct it all? You can look at it in different ways, of course, and be sure to let me know your thoughts below in the comment section, whether you agree or disagree. If you have any alternative theories, ideas, questions or answers, it's all welcome. Drop a comment down below, as it will help with spreading that awareness. And furthermore, if you want to catch up on additional videos of the Kenny Veach M Cave case, or you've missed out on my recent selection, extremely important and valuable, don't worry, you can catch it all. Top right corner where the I symbol is up there. When you click on it, you get the drop down menu box and the full playlist too. If you want to support my channel in general, there'll be a pinned message in the comment section with a PayPal link to me and a channel membership link here. With that all being said, just wanted to get that out of the way. Feel free to hit the hype button if you are on mobile, because it's all about spreading awareness. And when it comes to Kenny Veach going out on a hike, a very important one, and recording it, you try and make the most. And Kenny Veach didn't seem to make the most of it, unless he did it on purpose because he didn't want people to know the full hike route. He didn't want people to know the exact starting point to be able to get to the mine shaft, because whilst the cave may be beyond, the mine shaft is a key hotspot too. How do you get from point A to point B if you don't know the original spot, if you don't have the original coordinates? When it came to Sean Horlacher, he studied Kenny's footage, and with being familiar with the area, somewhat local, etc., was able to pin it out bit by bit. But if you're more of an outsider, more so if you're not even from that country or state, you might have a harder time in trying to retrace Kenny. Now, maybe Kenny didn't want to be found like how it was suggested, but did Kenny Veach want anyone else finding the supposed M cave, or did he want that all to himself? So besides misdirection, besides some contradictions, he also limited his hike visibility through the footage. And yes, there were edits, there were jump cuts, there's some visual glitches in his footage. If you're not familiar with, you rewind it back on his channel and you will notice it. And in fairness, for most hikers out there, they will edit and limit some of the footage to cut it down a bit, because to be out there for 10, 11 hours, getting all that footage, it's going to fill up on the storage pretty quick, and it will take even longer to process to upload afterwards. So I can understand stopping and starting with footage, but it's extreme and drastic with Kenny Veach. So to put it into perspective, what I'm going to do right now is play to you the first part of Kenny's hike so you can see visually.
Well, here I am on my hike up here in the mountains north of Las Vegas. This is a canyon I just walked up in. Now you can't tell, but my truck is way out there by the mountains at the very end of this valley. It's kind of like a big canyon. On the other side of these mountains, I'll show you in a second, is the bombing range, the Nellis Air Force bombing range. They do a lot of practice stuff out there. This is an old mine, and there's a hole here that just goes way down.
So he did give a bit of a description of his surrounding area, but not many keywords or familiar names, locations used. Never really referenced or mentioned drove down and parked down Joe May Road. Never included that. Or Little Joe May Canyon, never mentioned that. Or going over the ridge, as in Wild Horse Pass, never mentioned that. And as for Sheep Peak, in his footage, he referred to it as Gas Peak. And Gas Peak is nowhere near, it's further down south. So despite being an experienced hiker, Kenny didn't use named locations to make it clear as to where he was at. Was it by mistake? Was it down to being careless, reckless? Or did he know what he was doing, that he didn't want people to truly know the exact spot? Visually, you can only interpret so much from it. You do need coordinates most of the time, especially in very vast, rural, desolate locations where it could all look the same. By simply saying, oh, I'm in a canyon and I've come up from down that way, many miles away, 3 to 4 hours it can take from what most hikers have said since. Kenny doesn't seem to acknowledge that. Kenny doesn't even seem to acknowledge the distance in total. And yet, at the end of his hike, the unreleased original footage, which was included, but he didn't actually include in his final cut, he ended up making a reference to, I'll need to take a look at my map. And I thought he didn't rely on maps. I thought he didn't rely on GPS. I thought he was experienced enough. It's a little bit all over the place. And, you know, when you're starting off a hike, a mystery, an adventure, searching for something of importance, and with a high level of importance, there's going to be a higher level of focus and care and consideration of, whilst it's important for you to retrace, if you're proving it to other people, you want them to see it through your eyes, and that's through the means of a camera lens. So you'd hope to just get as much footage in as possible. And good examples of hikers onwards that demonstrated that, as in Joe May Road, getting out and then walking up that canyon to the mine shaft, is SB Vegas Adventures and Sean Horlacher. Let me play to you an example right now.
All right, pulling up to the visitor center here. Gonna get signed in. Right now, I'm gonna kind of get focused, do a little meditation before I embark out. Not letting me down today. It is pretty windy. Trying to put videos out, trying to figure out what the truth is, so all this funny business can stop. You know, we got caves being covered up out here. We got a guy missing. There's all types of stuff happening. Walked beyond where I can't see the truck anymore. I'm probably at least a half mile from it.
Today this seems awfully familiar. Weren't we just out here? Yeah, we were out here for the hidden cache video. That's the video where we went out there to Joe May Canyon, where Kenny Veach disappeared about 10 years ago. Joe May Canyon, that's where Kenny Veach disappeared 10 years ago. He parked his truck right here. He hiked out there about 4 miles to an old mine. His cell phone was found at the mine. Like I said, I had a couple of thunderstorms roll through yesterday. It was really overcast, and it's still a little bit overcast, and that's fine. It's cool. We're walking in the open desert, the same place we have so many times before, Joe May Canyon. And like I said, Kenny Veach, about 10 years or so ago, he walked out here, supposedly parked his truck where mine is, and his phone was at the mine, so they know he at least went there. Where he went after that, nobody knows.
So that footage, what you saw from Sean Horlacker's point of view to SB's, is at around Joe May Road, setting off for the first time as if they're going towards the mine shaft. And they're just example videos of the beginning part, the origins of the hike itself, which Kenny Veach never recorded from his channel point of view, which is really unfortunate because you never know what could have been documented along the way, what other unknown mysteries to Kenny, auditory and visual, could have been captured. Because when we've looked back at Kenny's footage, there are some very creepy findings which he didn't seem to hear or see himself. So what else could have been out there? As for other hikers that have recorded more, been more vigilant, that's why they've come across more side mysteries, more unexplainable events, and even witnessed it to an extent themselves because they had the camera rolling. So you can see how there's wasted opportunities here and there. And when you want to include as much as possible to prove that something does exist, you'd think you'd be a little bit more careful. Now, these hikers who have given us examples, credit to them, they have been out there multiple times. So maybe they didn't show the mine shaft on one of the hike videos, but they certainly did a time before or onwards in the future. For Kenny Veach, he was going out there at least one time on a recorded hike because the next time he went back out there, when he went missing, he supposedly didn't take his normal video camera, but a girlfriend did say that his alternative camera, just for taking photos, was missing from the house. That never seems to get talked about. But it was just making it clear that Kenny only went out once and recorded it once. You'd think you'd try and record as much as possible. If you're going out on separate occasions, the first mission to locate the mine shaft and then a second hike to locate Picture Canyon and the selection of caves and unusual encounters over there, you might split it up. But if you're doing one whole hike, you'd think you'd record bits and pieces from each spot. Start, middle, and end, and some little bits in between. And as we saw, that's not what really happened. And whilst the start is a big important factor, as in the origins of how the hike started off and the direction, which other hikers have successfully demonstrated since, making it easier for us to understand and visualize ourselves there, the journey back is just as important. So once again, I'm going to play to you a little bit of footage from Kenny's point of view, as in how the video ended once he exited Picture Canyon.
But I am at the mouth of the canyon. There, I'm just now coming out, and now I have to take a big left-hand turn and walk all the way back to my truck, which is a long, hard trip because I've got a lot of up and down to do. Well, I'm still hiking. It looks like it's about 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and I'm getting worn out, but I've got a lot. I don't know, I think I got about 3 more miles to go.
With that all being in mind now, to stress the importance behind it, let's head on over to Google Earth to show you the map analysis hike route of what was recorded, what wasn't, and the total distance. So in terms of the color coding, I will explain that in just a second so you know what's up here. We've got a handful of markers too, and the distance as in what was recorded and what wasn't. So what you see highlighted in general all around is the total hike loop route, 10 to 11 miles or so. But what's highlighted in blue, as in the lines, that's basically where Kenny Veach did not record anything to our knowledge, with the exception of the one down here, and I'll explain that a bit later. What's highlighted in the yellow further on is the footage, what we saw from Kenny's point of view. And you can see how underwhelming it truly is because of all the distance visually beforehand and on the way back. So we just focus in as in heading north towards the mine shaft. From a handful of hikers since going out there, they said it can take 3 to 4 hours on foot. So that means Kenny Veach did 3 to 4 hours hiking without recording any footage whatsoever. You know, when you go out of your way to go to such a desolate, remote area and you're trying to prove to people where the cave is, you might also think of proving to people you are out there and in a specific area, just in case anything went wrong, just so other people can look at it themselves in person. Because Kenny Veach originally, in a comment online, said, "Does anyone want to come with me? Anyone run their mouths? How about you come with me on the hike?" So Kenny originally wanted people with him so they could see it with their own eyes, but never happened. So why didn't Kenny Veach at least provide the eyes for the public from the starting point, such as Jeremy Road down here, like how SB Vegas explained very clearly? A good example. 3 to 4 hours of wasted, missed opportunities. You could say, well, is there anything of interest up this way? Because other hikers since may have recorded parts, but they didn't discover too much. Well then, what about SB when finding that other mine shaft further on? That's before Wild Horse Pass, I believe. So that's going to be of some interest, and more so at the time for Kenny Veach back in 2014, earlier on, when really no one was going out there because Kenny hadn't put the place on the map yet until his disappearance. So he would have been one of the first ones in regard to the case to have documented the areas down here, which could have been vital for people learning and mapping the route more efficiently. Yet Kenny never thought of doing that, even including Joe May Guzzler up that way where those mountains are and beyond, an area which Kenny Veach pointed out to once he got over Wild Horse Pass and suggested that there are caves over that way, not where he found the original M cave, but there are caves over there. It's a shame he didn't record them then, right? Or at least give a shout out to that area when passing by. He only thought to do it much later on in his hike. So, roughly the mine shaft here, where that marker is. And he had the camera facing him as his back was facing all the way down there. And that's what Kenny was referring to, his vehicles over there way into the distance. But it would have been nice to, show a bit of the footage of him walking up 3 to 4 hours worth of no recording just to get to the mine shaft to then record. Lugging that big tripod around in camera, that excess weight, you'd think you'd make the most of it. If you're going to carry such heavy weight and equipment, just to do 3 to 4 hours of hiking to then finally set it up, you'd think, well, I'm uncomfortable, it's hard it's difficult, I might as well make it my worth and time by recording other stuff before, including nature, photography, and anything else in between. But he chose not to. Was he on a mission? Was he walking quick? How long did it take him? 3 to 4 hours or less? Depends, really. But he never made it clear, which is very unfortunate. So he recorded his footage here, looking into the mine shaft, panning around over that way, using his hands, directing and pointing, and then the footage cut. It ended. So yes, he did walk over this way, over Wild Horse Pass, but he didn't record himself going over it. Once he descended down here into the open canyon, I can't zoom in anymore because it glitches, down this way, then Kenny decided to start hitting the record button and panning around and describing what's about, what's in sight, and however that way there's those caves, as said. And then he walks on for a little bit so far, and then he stops, he pans the camera around, notices a bird or so, walks a little bit more, and then he cuts it again. The next time his camera was on was further down this way, just before Picture Canyon, somewhere down here. And just before that, he was pointing to some kind of like rock formation on the left-hand side, almost like a statue, but not literally, which some people picked up on. And then it jumped to facing the opposite way, I believe, this way. And then he slowly panned around to what was ahead, and then started to walk, then panned the camera to the right and said, the cave I'm kind of looking for, it's deep and it's dark and it's shaped just like a letter M. Went something like that, and I've got to keep my eyes peeled, and it's about on ground level, just like here. And I don't know if it's the exact spot, but it's roughly there, I believe. Let me just try and, will it do the marker? Roughly in that area, those coordinates of where he's walking by. So, that distance that he covered with some jump cuts in between, that's understandable. Small jump cuts in between, because you can't literally record everything, but at least record a summarised version of the hike. He recorded a bit of it going down Picture Canyon as well, where there was like a descent, a drop, but he didn't record himself dropping down. And then all this wasn't included, and you saw from the footage when he was at the end and he was looking that way and he said, I'm out of the mouth of the canyon, panned the camera around that way and said, I've got a long way to go. And then the other little bit of footage of him recording a turtle, and that was the only reason why he decided to record it. He said he had 3 to 4 miles left. So from here to onwards, based on the distance that I measured, it was about 4.2 miles unrecorded. So really, where Kenny Veach recorded the turtle wasn't far from where he exited the Picture Canyon mouth, exited. So, with that being in mind, roughly speaking, the total distance from the mine shaft down to the end and exit of Picture Canyon is about 2.7 or about 2.72 miles. Now, it wasn't 2.72 miles of complete recorded footage, but just as a rough summary, 2.72 miles of hike footage, in which some of it could have been recorded and was edited out to trim for time and file size. Hopefully you get where I'm coming from. But when it comes to, for example, when heading north, when he first set out, highlighted in blue, which he did not record, nor include in his video, that's from where his vehicle was parked roughly to the mine shaft up there. That's about 3.80 miles. 3.80 miles of unrecorded footage. And then on the way back, as you see highlighted in blue there, from the end point round about the exit of Picture Canyon to the vehicle, that's about 4.2 miles. So when you add it up in total, about 2.70 miles recorded and about, where's the marker, roughly 8 miles in total. 8 miles of unrecorded footage. 8 miles of no attempt made to even record just a little bit, setting foot out of the vehicle or returning back to the vehicle. And whilst the true end is located here, as in there is footage, which was uploaded by the girlfriend Sharon Pilgrim years later, Kenny never thought to include it in his actual hike video. But don't worry, someday I will, as like the full picture, or at least make it as full as possible, because I was supposed to do it a while ago, but I didn't get round to doing it. And the poll results, people wanted that, so I will take that into consideration. But don't you think it's shocking that there is more distance, more coverage unrecorded compared to what he actually did record in a smaller area and portion, after carrying and lugging around that big tripod as well? What was Kenny Veach even doing with that big tripod? He only seemed to use it at the mine shaft only, when propping it up, as he was stood there facing it with his back facing over there. He didn't really seem to use the tripod any other time. He didn't even set it up when he was walking up to the rock walls or the caves down there, just to simply point out and say, oh look, there's some caves here, but it's not the one I'm looking for. He just straight up walks by them whilst lugging that big tripod around. So out of 10 to 11 miles of total hiking, Kenny Veach only used that big, overweight, heavy tripod once at the mine shaft, having to cover 3 to 4 hours on foot just to use it once on his hike. That's what's so weird. Now, okay, maybe, yeah, he used his tripod when he was back at the vehicle, but we don't really include that because he wasn't intending on using that footage anyway for his hike. So if you put that aside, he only used it once truly on his actual hike. So it was just a bit weird. Of all the equipment he could have taken, he chose a heavy tripod using only once and limited food, water intake and other valuable equipment, tracking maps. So despite being an experienced hiker, he didn't seem to take full opportunity of the area and terrain from the different canyons as you see there. And that one. And then this one here. Okay, it goes on. And then I think there was like one there too. And Kenny Veach walking by them, but didn't even bother recording or acknowledging it, right? As Kenny said, oh yeah, one of the canyons over this way where there's caves which he found in the past. How come he didn't meant to walk by, get the camera out and quickly point over that way and say, yes, and in the past I went up one of those canyons. Just like how Kenny Veach did when he was at the mine shaft, he at least acknowledged that. When Kenny was at the mine shaft and he turned the camera around, he was pointing over up there, Sheep Peak, saying he hiked somewhere up that way in the past and hiked back down the next day. And I think it was when he referenced his girlfriend picked him up along the highway or something. So with that being in mind, Kenny mentioning a previous hike, panning the camera around to acknowledge where it was, why did he not consider doing that when on the way back? You know, you've not found the cave. What have you got to prove? What have you got to show for your hike and all that distance? Why not include some extra footage down here of other caves, or at least acknowledge a previous hike that you did for context and clarity, visually speaking, instead of just pointing blindly on the other side to some tall mountains. So Kenny Veach wasted an important chance there. And then even the same up this way, as I said. Now, that could come down to recklessness. It could come down to lack of consideration, tunnel vision, because he was too focused on where he believed it to be and not where it actually was, which could have been further down this way, in between, or on the other side. But there's also that other chance that Kenny knew exactly what he was doing. Now, there may be counterpoints, as in people could suggest, well, if Kenny is willing to go out there in the first place and be convinced by the general public to do so and record it as proof, is Kenny also willing to reveal the actual location, as in coordinates, named locations? Well, because Kenny can't even do the basics and the simplistic stuff, as in accurately naming the correct locations and giving them names as what they should be, he wasn't able to do that. What are the chances that he would be able to do with the cave? If Kenny did actually capture it on camera, would he have actually provided coordinates? Would he have been helpful and cooperative? Or would it have been like a hybrid, that Kenny is willing to go out there, record it, show it as proof, get that attraction and attention and hunger building, but it's like, you can look, but you can't touch. You can see it through my eyes, but I'm not going to give you the location because it's my claim to glory. It's my finding. Now, maybe at the end of the day, Kenny wasn't successful, clearly in his actual video. But, you know, if it was originally in his mind that he's going to go looking for it, how willing was he to share it truly with the general public? That's another little side avenue you need to take into consideration. But granted, the mystery of the 8 miles of unrecorded hike footage was there any possible moments where he did record, but he just didn't include in his main hike video. Because if Sharon Pilgrim roughly said that, as in the footage which he did record when he got back to the vehicle talking, felt it wasn't worth including, what other potential footage wasn't deemed as worth including? Whether it be in his mind or it revealed too much, you've always got to look at it holistically. So with the more mileage done unrecorded compared to the actual mileage done recorded, there's a lot of wasted potential, missed opportunities, or there's a lot of hidden footage which Kenny doesn't want us to see. And considering that previously in the past on his channel he had other hiking videos, and then they just all magically disappeared, What was Kenny trying to hide from us, really? I want to know your thoughts down below. And in the meantime, we'll see what happens next. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Be sure to hit the like button and share the video so more people get to see it and for that awareness. Because there's a lot of unfinished business in this case and light does need to be shined upon it. With that all being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. My name's Wallite Ref. Goodbye and good night.